Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to start a series where we cover all of the basics of playing the Long Dark and understanding the fundamentals of the game. Before we hop into any details though, I would like to point out that I am back in college right now and trying to get all of my setup figured out. So if the audio sounds a little bit weird, it's just because I'm trying to get a new setup going, so bear with me on that. But with that out of the way, let's start off by explaining the player UI. The default keybind to pull up the full HUD is to hit the tab key on your keyboard, and thankfully, the developers at Hinterland have provided us with a very simplistic UI that isn't overwhelming to look at. But despite that simplicity, there are still a couple nuances that newer players may struggle to understand initially. So I'm here today to help explain all of that. We're going to start with knowing your status meters, the clock, the centimeter, encumbrance, and receiving afflictions/buffs. The most important thing on your HUD is down here. These are your status meters. Your survivor has a warmth, fatigue, thirst, and hunger meter. These are your survivor's needs. They will deplete under certain conditions, and all needs except for warmth will slowly decay over time. Let's first talk about the fatigue meter. If it is full, you are fully rested. If it's empty, you're fully fatigued. There are a couple things that affect the rate you gain fatigue: movement and afflictions. Activities such as walking, sprinting, or climbing rope will increase your fatigue drain, with climbing ropes being the most strenuous on your fatigue. There are also several afflictions, such as food poisoning, that increase the rate of fatigue on your survivor as well. Additionally, there are a couple food, drink, and medicine items that affect your fatigue, whether it be increasing it or reducing it. When your survivor has become fully fatigued, they will no longer be able to sprint and will begin to lose 1% condition per hour, meaning that they will die in just over 4 days if you don't rest. The last thing to note here is that once you reach 50% fatigue, your survivor's carrying capacity will begin to decline, reducing by up to 15 kilograms upon reaching full fatigue. Thirst is similar to fatigue in that the more full the meter, the less thirsty you are. Thirst depletes at a constant rate, although that rate decreases when sleeping. There are also other things that affect your thirst, such as hydrating or dehydrating foods. A common strategy to maximize your water value is to eat dehydrating foods when you're already 100% thirsty. Since you cannot go into negative hydration values, this essentially nullifies any negative effect of those foods. Thirst will decay relatively fast. If you are sleeping, you will go from 100% hydration to 0% in 16 hours on Pilgrim, 12 on Voyager and Stalker, and 10 on Interloper. Because of these decay rates, it is recommended that you drink to fill your thirst meter before sleeping through the night, as you don't want to lose condition from dehydration while you're sleeping. And due to the fact that your meter will empty in 10 hours on Interloper while sleeping, you can avoid losing any condition while sleeping through the night if you sleep for just 10 hours, then drink some more water, and then sleep the rest of the night. If your thirst meter has reached 0, then your survivor will begin to lose condition at a rate of approximately 50% per day, killing your survivor in just 2 days if at full condition. For hunger, the fullness of the meter reflects the amount of calories your survivor has, and the decay rate of those calories is directly reflected by the level of activity your survivor is doing. It is kind of complicated to figure out what things burn calories the fastest, but thankfully, putting that stuff together is what I do best. The order of least calorie taxing to most calorie taxing activities is sleeping, standing, walking and repairing snow shelters, dismantling snow shelters, breaking things down or harvesting a carcass, building a snow shelter, sprinting, and finally, rope climbing. Additionally, you will burn slightly more calories while moving uphill as well. When your hunger has reached 0, your survivor will lose condition at a rate of 1% per hour, the same as fatigue, meaning that they will die in just over 4 in-game days if starving for that long. A key thing to note about starvation is that if your survivor is starving for over 24 in-game hours in a row, it will begin to reduce your maximum fatigue, decreasing the amount of rest you can get at once. This reduction will occur at a rate of 2% per hour of starvation after the first 24, and will max out once it has become 50% reduced. If your survivor eats something, this will start to fade at a rate of 5% per hour, eventually returning to normal if you're able to avoid starvation for long enough. For each of these 3 needs, the rate of decay is different in each difficulty, with harder difficulties having higher multipliers for the ambient decay of their values. But one of the meters does not decay constantly, and that is the warmth meter. Unlike the rest of the meters, the warmth meter is only affected by the environment around your survivor. To see how cold your survivor feels, go to the status tab of your inventory, where you can see in the bottom left an ambient air temperature, wind chill temperature, and feels like temperature. The ambient air temperature is the world's temperature, which tends to increase as the day goes on and decrease as the night goes on. The wind chill temperature increases with higher wind speeds, and feels like temperature is how cold your survivor feels after applying all warmth bonuses from your clothing. If your survivor's feels like temperature falls to freezing temperatures, 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, your warmth will start to decrease, with the rate of decrease getting higher the farther below those freezing temperatures your feels like temperature is. You can help mitigate that loss by consuming warmed up food or drink, which will give you the warming up buff, pushing the meter up a little bit and slowing the rate of decay for the duration of the buff. If you are above those freezing temperatures, your warmth will increase at a rate proportional to how far above freezing you are. If your warmth meter reaches 0, your survivor will lose condition at a rate of 20% per hour, killing them in just 5 hours. Due to this, warmth is the most crucial need in the Long Dark. That rate of condition loss does not change with the temperature, meaning that you could have a feels like temperature of -1 degree, and you will still lose 20% an hour when you're at 0% warmth. On top of that, upon reaching a 0% warmth, your survivor will receive the affliction hypothermia risk, which we will go over in a future video about afflictions. Now let's talk about how to tell how fast your needs are decreasing. As you move about Great Bay or do certain activities, you'll see these arrows next to your needs, spanning from 3 arrows down to 3 arrows up. I'm sure you can tell all the basics here. 3 arrows down means quick deterioration, and 3 arrows up means quick replenishment. What I want to talk about here is a misconception I've seen from some survivors, where they misinterpret how the game is programmed to determine what arrows to display. I've seen some think that all arrow values are always equal, meaning that whenever you're in a situation where you have 3 arrows down, all those situations have the same depletion rate. This is not how that works though. For example, both sprinting and rope climbing cause 3 arrows of depletion on fatigue, but rope climbing will cause fatigue to build up far faster than sprinting, despite them both having 3 arrows. By now I'm sure you're wondering what this bar down here is. And what is this word you keep using, condition? Well, this bar is your condition bar. It is essentially your survivor's health. As explained previously, your survivor's condition will decrease when any of your needs reach 0. Additionally, many afflictions will decrease your condition as well, some being capable of either decreasing or increasing your maximum condition. You can restore your survivor's condition by sleeping while you don't have any needs at 0. Other than fatigue, of course, since sleep is going to increase that meter. And there are some other items in the long dark that can increase condition or rate of condition increase, like the birch bark tea and herbal tea. If your survivor's condition ever reaches 0, they will die. Additionally, once they reach about 10% condition, the condition bar will turn red, and you'll begin to hear a heartbeat sound and stumble around when you try and move. These effects will get more and more intense the closer you get to death, but they will go away once you recover above 10% condition. Due to this effect, it can be incredibly dangerous to fall to that condition, because you may stumble into a fire, off a cliff, or some other hazard. So try to keep yourself out of that area. Alrighty then, we've covered all the basic needs and your condition. But before we move to the clock, let's actually move to the other side of the screen here and look at our stamina meter. Your stamina bar will only go down when you're either sprinting or doing a rope climb, and it will slowly regenerate when you're not doing one of those activities. Your stamina bar can also be affected by the mobility of your clothing. Some clothes in the long dark reduce your mobility, and that will reduce in a section of your stamina bar appearing red, which indicates a reduction in your maximum stamina. Your survivor may also experience reduced stamina from certain afflictions as well. The final thing to note with stamina is that if you reach full fatigue, your maximum stamina will be reduced by 100 until you're able to rest. Alright, that was a lot, but thankfully the remaining HUD info is very quick and straightforward. So let's talk about the clock. Looking up at the top right of the screen, you can see this little semicircle, with either an icon of the sun, the moon, or both, depending on the time of day. The sun and the moon are on opposite sides of the clock, so the only time you will see them both is while one is setting and the other is rising. They will both move clockwise around the circle. Now I'm sure all of you are thinking, stars, I know how a clock works. Which, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. But there's one thing about the clock that took me a long time to understand, which is when does the shift from day to night or night to day officially occur? For a long time, I thought it was when both the sun and moon were evenly on the horizon lines. This is not true, however. The shift from the states of the day officially happens when the moon or sun has fully risen past the horizon. So even if the moon has begun to rise, you will still have an hour or two in-game before it gets too cold or too dark. The scent meter is very simple, but also very important. At the top center of your HUD, you will see 3 little scent wafts. The meter progresses in stages, filling 1 scent waft, then 2, and then 3. You acquire scent by carrying scented items. There are a lot of these, but the general rule of thumb to remember as a new player is that meat items always carry some scent value. You will also have a very large scent value if you have the blood loss affliction. Each item you carry that has scent will contribute to your survivor's overall scent value. The meter will fill up the first scent waft between the values of 15 and 44, the second from 45 to 79, and the third beyond 80. As a beginner, all these numbers won't really mean much to you. All you really need to remember is more stinky equals more bad, so don't be stinky. There are 2 crucial things here to note about scent. First, predators can smell scent, so the higher the scent value of your survivor, the farther away a predator may pick up on and follow that scent to you. Second, since the scent meter won't fill up in your HUD until it's reached at least 15th scent value, that means that you won't be able to see the scent meter between those values of 0 and 14. Despite the meter not showing up with the low values, you can still be smelled by wildlife. So if you notice a predator chasing a scent when you can't see a meter on your screen, then you are likely carrying something that produces a scent value, just not one high enough to show up. Another mechanic of scent is that the wind actually affects how scent travels in-game, with high winds changing the range that predators will detect you, depending on if the wind is blowing to or away from them in regards to your survivor. Now let's briefly look over a couple of the minor HUD elements. At the bottom right of our screen, we can see this little red icon of a weight. This will appear right below the stamina bar on your HUD when your survivor is encumbered. meaning that they are carrying more than their carrying capacity. We won't be diving into all the effects of encumbrance in this video, but when you see this icon in your HUD, it simply means that you are encumbered and may be prone to sprains, but it's nothing seriously detrimental to your survivor. You may also occasionally see this red symbol slightly above your stamina bar. This is here to indicate that your survivor is standing on a steep slope and will have an increased risk of spraining a joint while walking on it. Once again, nothing too serious. The final thing before we talk about receiving buffs and afflictions is this shield icon that will appear above your scent meter. This is to indicate that your survivor is standing in a spot where the terrain is protecting them from the wind. If you see this, it means that you're benefiting from a lot of extra wind protection while standing behind the natural cover. This will go away immediately once you've moved out of that natural cover spot though. Finally, let's look over to here. Here's where you're going to be receiving the notifications of incoming afflictions. In this picture we've been using, it is empty, but if our survivor was in a situation where they would receive an affliction, it would pop up right here, as you can see in this clip. We will be covering the nuances of all the different afflictions in a later video, but for now, what you need to know is if you see something pop up here, your survivor has received an affliction, and you should flip over to your status tab to check for further details. Finally, whenever you receive a buff of any sort, it will appear large in the center of your screen. Buffs also inform you when they wear off as well, so you'll always know exactly how long you're benefiting from them. Once again, we'll be covering buffs and afflictions in a later video, so if you're curious about what that buff does, go to your inventory and click to that status tab to learn more about it. And that's everything for today. You now understand the player UI in the Long Dark, and you can feel more confident when beginning your time on Great Bear. If you are new to the game, I hope this video helped, and if you aren't, I really hope you could learn something new. If I missed anything, please let me know. I care greatly about the integrity of the information I'm giving you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.